This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
September 10th is National Suicide Prevention Day. It is a day to remember and commemorate the lives that were lost to suicide. It's a way to bring attention and awareness to a topic that still affects so many people to this day. According to Statistics Canada, 12 people die by suicide every day. It's a staggering number, and it's clearly a large issue. Yet there is still considerable hesitation amongst so many people to be open and willing to speak about their own mental health. This had me thinking, why is there still so much reluctance to open up? Could it have to do with our surroundings and the stigma that comes with mental health? Are there people out there wanting to share their feelings, but they feel as though there's no one who would listen? I had the opportunity to speak with Emily Wankling, a recreational therapist at Vancouver Community Mental Health Services, who has worked with a variety of people in need of rediscovering their purpose. During her time as a therapist, one thing has become apparent. It's a different case for each person. However, she believes there's a bit of common ground. Reconnecting with your community is of critical importance, especially at a time when solitude is such a common occurrence amongst Canadians. Statistics Canada conducted research on this in 2021 and found that 15% of people aged 15 years and older were living in a single-person household. Wankling believes this form of solidarity is even more prevalent in Vancouver.
Some people feel very social seeing one person once a week. Some people want to be social and see people every single day. So I think it's very important. It's also important to be social and seek out our social connections even when we feel like we don't want to, or when we're feeling like not our best. I think it's, the price for community is inconvenience, as they say, and I think it's okay to inconvenience yourself sometimes to go be in your community, go support your community, and have your community sort of support you back. I think we are living in a time period where people are very isolated, and I think people have forgotten how important being social and having people, not to necessarily sit there and chat with, but having people that can support you is very important.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's almost like when you're socializing with someone, it doesn't even have to necessarily be about something that you're struggling with. It can almost be a way to distract yourself from that distraction and kind of just have a way to not think about it for 2 hours.
Totally, 100%. Something I say to clients too is leisure, if nothing else, can be a distraction, and that also includes sort of being social, right? Like we don't have to always be focused on our problems. We can try to be present and distract ourselves in the moment.
Yeah. And so you mentioned there at the end that you notice there's a lot of solitude kind of in Vancouver and across Canada a bit. And I actually went onto Stats Canada and found a stat from 2021 that said roughly around 15% of the population over the age of 15 is actually living alone in Canada. So
yeah,
I think this kind of solitude can actually impact one's mental health.
Totally. I think, like I said, like bringing it back to community, I find it's very important to have people in your life. And we do live a very we live in a very isolating place. I'm not from Vancouver originally, and I actually find Vancouver to be one of the harder cities I've lived in to find people and find community and find friends. And then, that back in 2021, we were still sort of in the heart of COVID as well. And that was a challenging time, but I think it highlighted a lot of the issues that Canadians have, and highlighted, the mental health crisis that we do actually have. Yeah.
And so you mentioned there that you've noticed it kind of over the years, and especially during COVID. And would you notice more that people are isolated away from their families and the relationships they have inside their families, or more the relationships they've had at work that they've had over school, or just like their friends?
Honestly, I think a combination of both. People, I think because of COVID, it also scared people a little bit, which we're still seeing in 2025. I'm still working with clients who are struggling to reintegrate and re-engage with their community again. So it was a very kind of scary time for people. And yeah, I think it was a combination of being isolated away from work, your social life, friends, family. I think kind of all of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if someone were to want to reach out about their mental health, let's say, and kind of talk about things that they're struggling with, but they don't necessarily have that one person in their life that could talk about that with them and would be able to listen, what can we
Hmm.
do as an entirety? What can we do to help provide individuals with more resources and ways to speak out about their mental health?
So the beautiful thing with Vancouver, now it's sometimes, unless you're a little bit tech savvy, you can go on Google and Google some of these things, but we do have quite a few resources here in Vancouver. And now my role with being a rec therapist, I'm very connected with like the Vancouver Parks Board community centers, but a step kind of in between that, we have a lot of supportive programs, whether that's through Vancouver Coastal Health, like we have the Access Central and Assessment Team, so that's somewhere you can call and reach out to and get resources, as well as we have something called like Open Door Group, that's another mental health kind of supportive program. We have the MPA Society, there is Spotlight on Mental Health. There's a few things within the city for sure that you can kind of access and reach out to, as well as you can just call the mental health teams. We have, like we have an intake number, we have an intake line that you can call and you can talk to somebody there, maybe about what you're going through, maybe it's an appropriate referral to a mental health team, or they can give you some options of who to seek out or where to go.
Okay, great. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
I guess my next question for you then is, it's kind of surrounding around stigma, because I know stigma with mental health is something that's been talked about for a while now, and it's something that people are
Mhm.
trying to combat. And I hear all the time, people are like, it's okay to talk about your mental health. Like, it's not something that you should be afraid to do. Yeah, I see
Totally.
on a day-to-day basis that there's so many people that are still reluctant to talk about it. So why do you think
Mhm.
that there still is stigma to this day, even though we're actively trying to get rid of it?
I think like everything, easier said than done, right? And to tell people, yes, talk about it to reduce the stigma. There's lots of people who are very comfortable talking about their mental health. But I think a big thing is like your own stigma against your mental health. So I often work with clients who hold feelings of shame, guilt, that kind of thing around their mental health, why they can't do certain things. And then also too, we live in a very multicultural city, and depending your background, where you're from, that can also be another factor. There's lots of cultures where it's not necessarily talked about, educated on, so that is also sort of a piece there. And then also too, dealing with stigma, like there's people who have, family members maybe who have judgments. There's lots of judgments around the city just around state or substance use. And then, you see things online or in the comments, right? Like we live in a little bit of a judgmental, the internet can be very judgmental towards people. So yeah, I think it's easier said than done when it comes to talking about it. And that's why I think it's important for those people who are confident when it comes to talking about their mental health to speak about it. I think the more we speak about it, the more we have people normalizing it, the easier it will get. Now, it's not going to be easy for everybody, and there's people who will always feel stigma, always have judgments. We can't change everybody's views or opinions, but I think it's becoming a lot more prominent, and mental health is becoming a topic that's spoken about a lot more frequently now. So I think the more we talk about it is all we can do, and remind people that they're safe, right? They're safe to talk about it, and providing spaces where they can feel safe to talk about that.
Yeah, and you went into a bit of detail there about kind of the internet and the role that plays in the stigma. So what do you think the new age of internet has as an impact on the stigma surrounding mental health?
The internet is good and bad. I think it depends how you use the internet, right? I think that there's lots of people that get behind a screen or get behind their phone and feel a level of power to speak freely about maybe their views, what they're thinking about. Now, on some hands that can be wonderful, and in some hands that can be not so great. I think too with the internet, I got a cell phone. I'm 31, so I got a cell phone when I was maybe 14-ish. Now, it was quite new to get a cell phone at that age when I was that age, but now, people are getting cell phones a lot younger, and being on the internet a lot younger. And I think with, if we're going back to basic psychology and child development, I think it is going to change how people are developing, how they interact with each other, how their communication, or what their communication skills kind of look like. Again, it's good and bad. It depends how you use it. It depends how you access it. I think it can be a great avenue to find, a community in that way, but it also can be isolating when you're off your phone and you realize people aren't around you. So I think it really, it depends how it's being used, but I would say it is a little bit isolating for sure.
Yeah. All right. And I just have one more question for you. What do you think is more impactful on someone's mental health? Someone who is not necessarily in a relationship and is kind of, I guess, single and living on their own, or someone who lives alone and doesn't really have the relationships that they need around them, and i.e. like family and friends? Which one do you think is more crucial to someone's mental health?
Relationships are very important, but you can have relationships with many different people, and you can also make connections with a lot of different people. Now, I think that's like everybody's different, right? Everybody has their own personality, their own likes and dislikes, and what I said sort of in the beginning about what's therapeutic to you might not be therapeutic to me. So as somebody who maybe enjoys living alone and having that solitude, it's okay for them to maybe go outside of their home and seek out relationships that are fulfilling to them. Or, on the flip side, if there's people who don't like living alone, maybe it's more positive to have like a roommate or somebody around that they can have that connection with.
That's For the Record. I'm Braden Coombs, and you're listening to BCIT's The Crow.